Alright guys, today I wanted to talk to you about how to take notes during Latin class. Let me get my pointer here. So this is not just during class, but it's actually more important during videos, like this one. Though you don't actually have to take notes on how to take notes. I'm not going to go that far, alright? Not totally crazy. In my Latin class, we use a style of notes very similar to Cornell note-taking style. I find it to be very effective because it essentially creates an index in your notes of topics, so you can very quickly see what topics you want to study, and leaves a spot for reviewing and summarizing your notes, and also writing down questions, which is going to be very useful when you're taking notes on my videos, so that you can write down questions while you're at home and bring them into class to ask me the next day. That way you don't forget about what questions you want to ask. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how we set up the page for Cornell Notes. You start by drawing a line 5 lines up from the bottom. If this was a lined piece of notebook paper, I'd have 5 lines here. And then about 1/3 of the way across the page, you draw another line going down. This line, if you think about the distance between your margin, like this is my margin and my red line, I want to make that distance again to get my vertical line. It's a good sort of way to figure out where that should go. Put your date at the top of the page. This is important. It seems kind of silly because you keep them all in your binder, but I promise at some point somebody's binder is going to break. Your notes are going to go all over the place, and you're going to need to get them back together in order. And it is so much easier to do that if you have dated your notes. At the top of each page, or at least at the top of each new set of notes, you'll put your section title or chapter or unit. You don't have to guess what to put here. I'm going to put it there for you. On my notes, and you've already seen examples of my notes now, you know that I title each one, so you're just going to put my title up there. On the left side, you're going to put main ideas. Again, you don't have to figure out what the main ideas are because I write them for you in my own notes. And on the right side, you'll put the details that go with each idea. You should line up your notes with the left side headings to see how these notes all go with main ideas, and then skip a line between new topics and headings. So now I'm skipping a line to give my examples, and then I have my next line lined up with here, so there's a blank line on both sides of my paper. When you write out, you should write out your practice sentences from notes. That's something you want to skip lines between as well, so you see that this is a practice sentence. And then down in the bottom, you're going to write your review and reflection, and any additional practice sentences, any questions you want to ask in class. Some of your videos have hidden assignments in them. You want to put those hidden assignments down here. Not so hidden once you've seen them, but that's how I check that you have watched the videos. And if you're one of those people who like to doodle while you take notes, use the space down here to doodle. That way you don't clutter up your notes and you can read through your notes much easier. I will be checking this section, and we'll talk about the requirements for it on the next slide. Sometimes you will have time to do this section in class. Certainly anytime you finish work early, feel free to go through and work on filling out this section, but ultimately it's your responsibility to do it, whether you do it the day we take notes or you decide to cram it all in right before the test, which is when I check these. That's up to you. Think about your time management, though. I recommend you do them as soon after taking the notes as possible. So some hints from Mrs. Perry. So here's our new title section, right? When I set up my notes, I format all of my notes with the main idea on the left side and the details on the right, just like Cornell style. My notes and videos are all posted in the corresponding Schoology folder. So if you want to find my video on things from stage 1, click on the stage 1 folder, and so on and so forth. My notes are more detailed than yours need to be. Alright, you're allowed to write less than what I write. This is because I want to include all of the information you might need, and I want to anticipate questions you might have. You might not end up having those questions that I sort of answer in my notes, so you don't need to write that. And there might be things that I include that you already know, right? If I say something like a subject does the action of the sentence, and you're like, Mrs. Perry, I've known that since like 3rd grade, then don't write it down. These are your notes. They're there for you to help you get ready for my quizzes and tests. So what do your notes have to have? I do have some requirements on what I expect to see. You should have all of my left side headings. So everything you see me put on the left side of my notes, you should have too, with the exception of reviews. You don't have to write down the review section. You've already taken notes on those. That's what makes them a review. You should have at least one thing, and by thing I mean right-hand side information per heading. So again, if you didn't want to write down all of this, you might say, my notes, Mrs. Perry's notes are more detailed than mine need to be, right? Go for the big important information that you need. And if I give you examples of something, you need to include at least one of them. It never hurts to have all of them, but I'm only going to make the minimum requirements is that you have at least one of my examples written down. You can also abbreviate your notes, use symbols, shorten words, texting shorthand, whatever works for you. All right? It's okay if I don't know exactly what your symbols represent, as long as you do, and as long as it's clear to me that you're not just writing gibberish down on your paper. And your notes should be in your own words whenever possible, not mine. I've already given it to you in my words. This is your opportunity to put the notes into your own words to help you study and help you prepare. For example, if I use a word you don't know, don't write that word down in your notes without defining what it means, right? Otherwise, it's a waste of your time. So what do you put down here? This is where your review / reflection / summary, whatever you want to call it, is going to go. And you must complete one review for each top of page heading, right? So sometimes you'll have 3 pages all on ablative case, for example. Well, you don't have to have a review written on every single page. Just on that last page do you have to have one. Now, those other pages, I still want you to draw this box, because it's a place that you can write questions and you might need the extra space. Maybe you have more you want to put in your review that can be fit in 5 lines. And of course, it's your place to draw your doodles. So maybe you want to make sure you have that space there. So you always draw this, but I only check it for completion for each page heading. Anything above and beyond you want to do is okay, and it's good. You need to be at least 3 sentences long, 3 complete sentences, subject, predicate, verb, period, right? Some sort of punctuation. And include any video assignment. So if I give a video assignment, you need to do it down here. And it should have at least 1 question and 1 example besides mine. So you'll need to create your own example of the grammar we've just learned. The question can count towards your sentences, so you can do 2 complete sentences and 1 complete question. For the questions, when you're watching the videos, I'm hoping that those questions will be actual questions that you want to ask me in class. But sometimes, perhaps, I've just made a really awesome lesson and you watch it and you're like, all right, I got it. I don't need anything else. I don't need a question. I still want you to write a question, but what you can do in that situation, if it's not a question you want to ask me, is imagine how I might ask a question on the material for a test or quiz and write that down. That way when you're reviewing your notes, it's getting your brain sort of the testing and quizzing format, right? You're thinking, okay, how is this going to look when I see it on a test? All right, that is all I have. Hopefully you find that helpful and that this will help us all have a very successful and awesome year in Latin.